Scripture to consider before the news. For the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now letteth will let, until he be taken out of the way. Satan's mystery of iniquity program is on overdrive right now as we race toward the kingdom of the beast, which is the New World Order. He who now letteth is Satan, the god of this world, and he is busy creating 666 order out of chaos. Let us see the latest developments in the Holy Land, because it will be all about the Holy Land in the final prophetic week coming up, the 70th week spoken of by Daniel the prophet. Now unto the news. Why Jerusalem's Aqsa Mosque is an Arab-Israeli fuse. Something to note. Al-Aqsa, using the practice of gematria, equates to the number of the beast and his name when using the reverse Sumerian cipher. There is no coincidence it is playing a role right now at moving us closer to the global kingdom of the beast and New World Order, which are one and the same. Gematria is an alphanumeric code of assigning a numerical value to a name, word or phrase based on its letters. A single word can yield multiple values depending on the cipher used. Back to the news. The violent confrontations between Palestinians and Israeli security forces at al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem this month reflect its significance as part of one of the most contested pieces of religious territory in the Holy Land. Here are some basics on the mosque compound, from its importance over the centuries for three major religions to why it is such a flashpoint today. What is al-Aqsa Mosque? Al-Aqsa Mosque is one of the holiest structures in the Islamic faith. The mosque sits inside a 35-acre site known by Muslims as Haram al-Sharif, or the Noble Sanctuary, and by Jews as the Temple Mount. The site is part of the Old City of Jerusalem, sacred to Christians, Jews and Muslims. In Arabic, Aqsa translates as farthest, and in this case it is a reference to Islamic scripture and its account of the Prophet Muhammad traveling from Mecca to the mosque in one night to pray and then ascending to heaven. The mosque, which can hold 5,000 worshippers, is believed to have been completed early in the 8th century and faces the Dome of the Rock, the golden domed Islamic shrine that is a widely recognized symbol of Jerusalem. Muslims consider the whole compound to be holy, with crowds of worshippers filling its courtyards to pray on holidays. For Jews, the Temple Mount, known in Hebrew as Har Habayit, is the holiest place because it was the site of two ancient temples. The first was built by King Solomon, according to the Bible, and was later destroyed by the Babylonians, and the second stood for nearly 600 years before the Roman Empire destroyed it in the 1st century. The United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, has classified the Old City of Jerusalem and its walls as a World Heritage Site, meaning it is regarded as being of outstanding international importance and therefore as deserving special protection. Who has control over the mosque? Israel captured East Jerusalem, including the Old City, from Jordan during the Arab-Israeli War of 1967, then annexed the area. Israel later declared a unified Jerusalem to be its capital, though that move has never been internationally recognized. Under a delicate status quo arrangement, an Islamic trust known as the Waqf, funded and controlled by Jordan, continued to administer al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock, as it had done for decades, a special role reaffirmed in Israel's 1994 peace treaty with Jordan. Israeli security forces maintain a presence on the site and they coordinate with the Waqf. Jews and Christians are allowed to visit, but unlike Muslims, are prohibited from praying on the grounds under the status quo arrangement. Jews pray just below the sacred plateau at the western wall, the remnants of a retaining wall that once surrounded the Temple Mount. Tensions over what critics call the arrangement's discrimination against non-Muslims have periodically boiled over into violence. Adding to the tensions is Israel's annual celebration of Jerusalem Day, an official holiday to commemorate its capture of the entire city. The celebration, most recently held Monday, is a provocation for many Palestinians, including residents of the eastern part of Jerusalem. The Palestinians want East Jerusalem to be the capital of a future Palestinian state, a prospect that seems increasingly remote. Does Israel want to take full control of the site? Israeli officials, including Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, have said they do not intend to change the status quo. But some Israeli religious groups have long pressed for the right to pray at the site. In April, Jordan's foreign ministry formally complained about large numbers of Jewish visitors to the site, calling it a violation of the status quo. What is different about the latest protests? In the weeks before the outbreak of violence Monday at al-Aqsa, tensions were building between some Jews and Palestinians on issues unrelated to the mosque compound. They included violent clashes between Israelis and Palestinians that erupted a few weeks ago around the Old City. Some Palestinians attacked Orthodox Jews in Jerusalem, and an extremist Jewish supremacy group conducted a march in which participants chanted, "Death to Arabs." Palestinians also were angered that the police had forbidden them to gather at a favorite plaza by the Old City during the first weeks of the holy month of Ramadan. In a further inflammation of tensions, Palestinians have battled with the Israeli police over the expected eviction of Palestinian residents of East Jerusalem's Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood to make way for Israeli settlement construction. The clashes have come as the Israeli government is in political limbo, after 4 indecisive elections over the past 2 years, and after President Mahmoud Abbas of the Palestinian Authority indefinitely postponed Palestinian legislative elections scheduled for later this month. It would have been the first such ballot since 2006. How have previous clashes shaped the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? Bitter recriminations and hardened attitudes have reverberated from all of the confrontations over the religious shrines in Jerusalem's Old City, but some especially stand out as having helped shape Israeli policy. In 1990, for example, deadly riots exploded after a group of Jewish extremists sought to lay a cornerstone for a temple to replace the 2 destroyed in ancient times. The violence led to widespread condemnation of Israel, including by the United States. In 2000, a visit to the site to assert Jewish claims there, led by right-wing Israeli politician Ariel Sharon, then Israel's opposition leader, was the catalyst for an explosive bout of Israeli-Palestinian violence that led to the Palestinian uprising known as the Second Intifada. In 2017, a crisis erupted after 3 Arab Israeli citizens at the compound shot and killed 2 Israeli Druze police officers. That led the Israeli authorities to restrict access to the site and install metal detectors and cameras. Arab outrage over those security measures led to more violence and tensions with Jordan that required U.S. diplomatic mediation. The metal detectors were removed. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and click the notification bell so you can get notified whenever new Bible prophecy news videos are uploaded. Scripture to consider. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, and in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. We here at the Watchman report see Prince Mohammed bin Salman as the Prince of the Covenant, which will confirm a covenant with many including Israel because the number of his name is the number of the beast, when seen using the practice of gematria while using the prime cipher. He also comes from the line of kings in Revelation chapter 17 where 5 are fallen and 1 is his father King Salman. Keeping that in mind, back to the news. Saudi olive branches in all directions in change of strategy. The Saudi Crown Prince's priority is to implement major reforms to enhance the status of the kingdom and anticipate possible shifts as a result of new U.S. policies. Saudi Arabia has received a lot of attention in recent days by becoming a magnet for high-level dignitaries from different countries, some of whom are not known to be among the allies of Riyadh. These included Qatar's Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, Pakistani Prime Minister of Pakistan Imran Khan, and Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu, besides Riyadh's surprise move to open direct channels of communication with Iran. Gulf analysts say that the succession of visitors, as well as Riyadh's admitting to holding direct dialogue with Iran, have reflected a new approach by the Saudi leadership based on de-escalation of differences with some countries and seeking to deal with some of the most contentious issues from a bilateral perspective. Analysts see Riyadh's main goal as searching for the kingdom's interests first and foremost, regardless of its previous alliances in the Gulf or the wider region. The same analysts see Saudi Arabia as seeking to take advantage of regional changes in a swift and pragmatic way, very differently from its previous propensity to delay decisions and wait for the positions of others to become clearer. The Saudi leadership, they point out, has changed its ways of dealing with old alliances and rivalries. It no longer objects to opening communication channels with its traditional rivals, including Iran and Turkey. In starting to radically change its strategy, especially with regard to Iran, Riyadh may be seeking to anticipate future developments that may accrue as a result of the new U.S. administration's overture to Iran. In this context, it has initiated a thaw with Tehran instead of having to deal later with a fait accompli. Saudi Arabia believes that Iranians will be interested in starting direct dialogue as they could be looking for an opportunity to reassure Riyadh, assuage regional concerns about their nuclear program and convey a desire for dialogue so as to de-escalate regional crises where Saudi and Iranian roles are tangled. Winning over Riyadh could relieve Tehran of a lot of pressure and pave the way for local acceptance of its regional roles. Iranian government spokesman Ali Rabieh said his country is determined to address all the divergent viewpoints that cause concern to the countries of the region. He expressed the belief that the time is now ripe to end these differences and establish a climate of security, good neighborliness and brotherhood among the countries of the region. After acknowledging the existence of secret meetings with Iran in Baghdad, a rare occurrence in the annals of Saudi diplomacy, Riyadh has publicly dispatched a delegation headed by Prince Khalid bin Salman, the Saudi Deputy Minister of Defense, to Baghdad to work on arrangements for the next round of talks with Iran in Iraq. Iraqi political sources confirmed to the Arab Weekly that the delegation includes a number of political and security figures who will meet Iraqi officials and subsequently Iranian officials. The agenda of the Saudi-Iranian talks is usually shrouded very much in secrecy, but private sources have mentioned the possible discussion of such issues as the future of the conflict in Syria, the formation of a Lebanese government and a ceasefire in Yemen. Even if Iraq, the former land of Babylon, is the host country for the secret dialogue between Iran and Saudi Arabia, sources say Tehran and Riyadh are likely to avoid delving into Iraq-related issues. Observers believe that the new Saudi momentum towards crossing the past red lines with Iran comes in response to the Biden administration's pressure, which the Saudis see as gradually painting Riyadh into a corner and pushing it to make concessions that do not take into account its own national security imperatives. They note that when Riyadh has expressed willingness to open direct dialogue with Iran, it pulled the rug from under the feet of those who seek to use Tehran as scarecrow in order to blackmail Saudi Arabia. But expectations remain restrained regarding the outcome of the dialogue between Riyadh and Tehran and at what level it should be held in the future, as there are indications that it will be difficult at this stage to raise the level of representation of the two countries in the talks. Observers express their belief that any Saudi-Iranian understanding will require many rounds, which may take a few months, before any agreement is reached. The Saudi pivot towards Iran showed that the statements made by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, in his recent TV interview, in which he stressed Riyadh's desire to establish good and distinguished relationship with Iran, was not a mere maneuver. It was instead part of a Saudi strategy aimed at reshaping the country's regional environment and forging new interest-based relations. In the TV interview, Prince Mohammed said Saudi Arabia did not want the situation with Iran to be difficult. At the end of the day, Iran is a neighboring country and all that we hope for is to have good relations, he said. Our problem is with Iran's negative behavior, from its nuclear program, to its support for outlaw militias in the region, or its firing of ballistic missiles, he added. We are working with our regional and global partners to find solutions to these problems and we hope to overcome them for good relations that benefit everyone. Analysts believe that the surprising Saudi turnaround may be part of a vision consisting of forging new alliances that could sideline the kingdom's direct rivals, especially now that pressures have affected all those who in recent years chose to stand in the anti-Saudi camp, such as Turkey, Qatar and Pakistan. However, Gulf watchers say that Prince Mohammed bin Salman believes that external political, media and military battles hinder the kingdom's pursuit of its priorities, especially fulfilling the promise of reforms tied to Vision 2030, and that this goal will not be achieved without a temporary contraction of the Saudi external role. Talk of economic reforms and the opportunities and benefits could accrue from them to the Saudis have dominated the recent TV interview of Prince Mohammed bin Salman. He did not hide his firm belief that the priority is for reforms that elevate the kingdom to the standing of an influential regional power with or without oil. This consideration is a factor that might be decisive in understanding the nature of the changes in the official Saudi posture. Analysts say that the clear message that Saudi Arabia wants to send is that it is no longer concerned with old alliances and rivalries, whether in the Gulf or at the wider regional level. This was illustrated by Riyadh's decision to distance itself from the Qatari-Bahraini dispute, as an issue that could hinder the reconciliation process sought by Riyadh and consecrated by the Al-Ula summit last January. According to its new strategy, Riyadh seems to prefer solving problems with the concerned parties, during separate talks. This became clear in the Saudi stance towards Turkey, which now sees reconciliation as the way to overcome the unofficial Saudi boycott that has cost the Turks their share of the Saudi market. This was reflected by the steep decline in the volume of bilateral trade exchange, as well as in the widely popular economic boycott. Analysts point out that the policy of separate talks may help Saudi Arabia in its quest for a solution to the Yemen war, with the only condition being to obtain guarantees that preserve its national security interests. They point out that the recent Saudi Crown Prince's interview opened the door for a clear Saudi recognition of a possible status for the Houthis in the future. Scripture to consider for your eternal soul. And whosoever was not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire. Can you prove your name as in the book of life? It is possible to do from the scriptures alone. Beingjustified.com can help you while in the land of the living.